Welcome, ZASLOW Show 2.0. It is a Thursday, the 1st of June. Good to have you aboard. We are a Blue Wire podcast, presented as always by our title sponsor. Of course, we're talking about Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys, 800-747-FREE. That's 800-747-3733. None of this is possible without the great support from day number one, the best accident attorneys around, the only ones you're calling if you're involved in any kind of an accident. They're going to help you get the money you deserve from your accident, which caused a personal injury. Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys, 800-747-FREE. That's 800-747-3733. We got a great show today. It's all leading up to tonight, Game 1 of the 2023 NBA Finals, featuring your Miami Heat, who are in the finals for the 7th time in franchise history. Not just the 7th time in franchise history, but the 7th time in 18 seasons. That is remarkable. And the first thing I want to say here, make sure we should all be super excited, and I know we all are, but make sure you enjoy every moment starting tonight. We see what's going on with the Florida Panthers. It's the first time they're in the Stanley Cup final in 27 years. The Miami Dolphins, they have not been to the Super Bowl in, what are we talking here? 38 years, I think it is. 38 years since they've appeared in the Super Bowl. The Marlins, they were in the World Series 20 years ago. The Miami Heat, in the last 18 years, have been in the championship round 7 times. You gotta savor every one of these moments. We're so lucky that this Miami Heat team has been able to give us these championship opportunities this many times in such a short period of time. So just make sure that is not lost on you going into tonight. We're really lucky. So, obviously, I couldn't be more excited. I hope you guys are super excited. And we're here. Like, they did it. They did it. We're in the championship round, and now let the best team win. And so, like, what I mean by that is, it may surprise you, but I'm not going to be as nervous during the finals as I was last round. Because once you get to the championship round, like, we're here. We did it. Now let's go out and win it. We got the opportunity. The entire postseason, you're fighting for the opportunity. That's what the Eastern Conference tournament's about. You're fighting for the opportunity to play for the NBA championship. They did it. They have the opportunity now. Now let's go out and win it. But once we're here, we're here. So that's the way I see it. I will not be as nervous this round as I was last round. I wonder if anyone else feels that way. You know, at this point, you're like you're there. And if you don't win, all right, Denver was better. You had your shot at least. You made it there. Like now, I may end up feeling differently. I don't know how I'm going to feel, but I imagine unless the Heat lose, like if they lose the NBA Finals in Game 7, the way they lost Game 6 to Boston, I will be absolutely annihilated. I will never be able to recover. But if they lose this series, because Denver was the better team, I'm going to be okay. They got to the final round. They're playing in the last game of the year. I want them to win the last game of the year, but they're playing the last game of the year. I'm going to be okay unless it is a soul-crushing loss. I'll be okay however this turns out. We're here, and if we're better, we're going to win, and we'll win the last game of the year. I wonder if anyone else feels that way. I won't be as nervous during this round. Now, you know, if it's late in the game and the game, like I'll be nervous during the games, of course. Let's not kid around. But I'm not going to be a disaster after the finals if the Heat lose, unless it is, like I said, unless a totally soul-crushing loss like Game 6 against Boston. I'll never recover from that. But if Denver wins because they're the better team, yeah, I'll be okay with that. I wouldn't have been okay losing to Boston, especially blowing a 3-0 lead. That was the part that we were so scared of. I don't need that shit in my life forever. But if we lose to Denver, they're a great team. I'll be able to live with it. My main message, though, going into tonight, just we're here. They did it. We're so lucky. 7 trips to the finals in the last 18 seasons. Let's go win it. But we're so lucky. No, how about this? No one has been to the finals more in these last 18 seasons than your Miami Heat. No one. The Warriors have been there 6 times. Cleveland's been there 5. The Los Angeles Lakers have been there 4. Where's Boston on that list? I got to look all the way down to find Boston. No one has been to the NBA Finals more in this span than your Miami Heat. Remarkable. Best team, best sports town, center of the sports universe. And it all begins tonight. Very pumped up. You guys should be very pumped up too. Oh, and by the way, 8:30 start times now this year. Now, weekend is 8 o'clock. Weekend for the NBA Finals, Sunday night games have always, or at least since you can remember, are always 8 p.m. starts. But the weeknight NBA Finals games were always 9 p.m. 8:30, they moved them up this year. Now, I'd rather it be 8, but 8:30 is at least reasonable. 9 p.m., really 9:20. 9 p.m. is not reasonable. 8:30 is totally reasonable. I'll never understand, and obviously, they want to get as many primetime hours along the East Coast and along the West Coast as possible. But I'm sorry, nobody is not watching the games because they're starting at 5:30 now on the West Coast. And think about it. Which is better for people? Or which is less worse? The East Coast having to stay up until past midnight to watch championship games, or the West Coast having to start watching games right after work the very early evening. Which is less bad? It's so clearly the West Coast having to watch games start earlier. Having to force yourself to stay up past midnight to watch championship games sucks, and it's not how you grow the game. Like when I was a kid, I remember the first NBA Finals that I ever watched. The first finals that I remember watching religiously, watching every single game, it was the 1991 Finals, Bulls-Lakers. I remember my dad telling me, I was 10 years old. I remember my dad telling me, you got Michael Jordan versus Magic Johnson. It's Michael Jordan's first time ever in the finals. I'm like, whoa, I gotta watch this shit. So that was and of course, the Bulls won in 5, but the first game of that series in Chicago, big smooth Sam Perkins 3-pointer late in the game to ice it for the Lakers. The Bulls would go on and win the next 4 games, closing it out in 5 in Los Angeles. That was the first finals where I was dialed in. I was 10 years old. And back then, and like I just told you how game 1 finished, back then the games were not 9 o'clock starts. Matter of fact, I'm almost certain that into my teenage years, NBA Finals games on the weekend were sometimes in the afternoon. How about that? That's right. I'm almost certain that was the case. But at least now they moved the weeknight games tonight, 8:30 start time, so much more reasonable. So I'm really happy with that. So tonight, though, here's what I got going. Here's what I got going on tonight. This is a very big night in the ZASLOW Mansion. First of all, you want to talk about huge Heat fans. let me tell you about Water Cleanup of Florida, all right? My pals, the Greensteins, family, friends, and I love hearing from listeners who are already using Water Cleanup of Florida because you heard them on my show. If you have a water leak in your home, you can't find where it's coming from, you got to take care of this immediately. Call or text Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-900-8635. Water Cleanup of Florida is fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide one-stop shopping that all of us busy homeowners and business owners require. You don't need to bring in other contractors. Water Cleanup of Florida is my favorite part. They handle the entire project from start to finish. They service the entire Tri-County area, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties. Call or text Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-900-8635. After the leak has been located and repaired, they're not done. Water Cleanup of Florida is going to clean, dry, and fully restore the entire damaged areas. You can follow them on social, Facebook, Instagram. Check out more than 80 five-star reviews on Google. Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-900-8635. Water Cleanup of Florida. We clean up your schmutz. I know my guys, the Greensteins, they are super pumped. Water Cleanup of Florida, very into the NBA Finals. All right, so here's what I got going on today. It's a very big day, ZASLOW household. My older son, Corey, he's got his moving up ceremony, graduation ceremony, moving up ceremony. I'm going to have a kid in high school starting in the fall. That's nuts. Although I will tell you, I'm really looking forward to my son being able to drive. I mean, having to take him out. Like last night, we had soccer training. My son plays goalie for Weston Select, now U15. You know, that's what the season's going to be next year, is U15. He's the goalie for Weston Select U15. Really good team. And I got to drive out to Weston, several nights a week. And we're not exactly close to Weston. It's about 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away from us. So I stay out there the whole time. There's no sense me driving back and forth. I can't wait for this kid to get his license so I don't have to be schlepping him around all over the place, driving him all over to friends' houses. Oh, I'm so over it. Anyway, tonight my son, moving up ceremony, graduating middle school. So we got that ceremony tonight. Yeah, that's right. Tonight, game 1 of the NBA Finals. So my wife, now it starts at 7:30. Heat game's at 8:30. Tip-off is probably 8:45-ish, especially tonight because they do the whole introductions, they do the starting line, they do it's a whole big to-do for the finals. So I think it's probably an 8:45, maybe even like 8:48 tip. Ceremony starts at 7:30. Now the school, my son goes to Posnack School. The school apparently is breaking out the big screen projection in the courtyard. So right when the ceremony is over, everyone can watch the finals game. That ain't for me. Ceremonies, I don't watch the finals game, Miami Heat game 1 NBA Finals, in the courtyard with all kinds of people I don't know. That's not how we watch the game. I am speeding home. Luckily, my wife, the ceremony starts at 7:30. Luckily, my wife is the principal. She knows what's to come. She knows what's at stake. And what's at stake here is giving these kids their certificates, getting them off the stage, and getting me home so I can watch game 1 of the NBA Finals. So will I be home by 8:45, 8:50-ish when it starts at 7:30? It's be close. Gonna cut it really close. So that's what we got going on tonight. Very big night in the ZASLOW household. Hey, here's what we got coming up today. Mark Kestisher, the voice of the NBA Finals on ESPN Radio. He's got your call for all of these finals games. He will join ZASLOW Show 2.0 today. He's on the call with Doris Burke and PJ Carlissimo. So Mark Kestisher, he's the best out there. He will join us. He's always very kind to us with his time. We'll get Mark Kestisher on the show today. We'll talk about the finals. Did you see? Well, actually, I'll hold on to this. Let's stick with the finals here. So anyway, I already told you, make sure you savor these moments. I'll just tell you straight up. I believe the Heat are winning the finals. To me, I was talking to my son about this yesterday. I think it's their time. It feels like their time. and I believe in Jimmy, and I trust Jimmy. In this league, you normally, and I'll ask Mark Kestecher about this, you normally have to go through heartbreak to win the title. You saw it with the 2006 Heat. They lost Game 7 to Detroit in 2005. You saw it with the 2012 and 2013 Heat. They lost in the 2011 finals to Dallas. You don't normally have a team that's put together. And I'm not saying Denver was just thrown together this year. It's not the case. You don't normally have a team that just rises to the top and wins it right away. This Heat team has been through the heartbreak. They lost in the finals in 2020. They lost Game 7 in the East Finals last year. And they have been through it. They've been through the heartbreak. They've been through the huge moments. They've had to come through in the clutch moments. And it feels like their time. That's normally how it goes in this league. You got to go through it. You got to go through some heartbreak. This Denver team hasn't been through the heartbreak. This is their first time in franchise history in the finals. I feel like Denver losing in the finals this year would obviously qualify for that heartbreak. I think the Heat have been through it. I think the Heat have had these situations. And by the way, it's not like Denver, has had to deal with the big-time moments and the big-time situations yet this postseason. They kicked the shit out of Minnesota. They kicked the shit out of the Lakers. And then a broken Phoenix team. Miami's been through it. Everything the Heat have been through has led them to this point. And you're never going to find a tougher team mentally than this Miami Heat team. We saw it when you recover from Game 6 to Game 7. Shit, Eric Spoelstra wanted to play Game 7 right after Game 6 ended. This team's not fazed by anything. And now I think the Heat are winning the series. Now, they are massive underdogs. Obviously, who cares? Stop getting all wrapped up in the odds and the analytics and the percentages and people's opinions on TV, dopes like Mike Greenberg. Stop getting wrapped up in all this. Who cares? People are allowed to have their opinions, and percentages are percentages. Who gives a shit? Stop getting all wrapped up in who's not giving the Heat respect. You already know, I told you, I love when the Heat have no respect. I want no awards. I want no All-Stars. I want no Coach of the Years. I don't want anyone picking the Heat. I want nothing but disrespect. And by the way, picking the Denver Nuggets over the Heat is not disrespectful to the Heat. The Nuggets are a great team. They were number 1 in the West the whole year. It's not disrespectful. Stop getting all wrapped up in all that stuff. I think the Heat are winning the series. I do. I think it's going to be hard as hell. And you know I love starting a series on the road because I have super confidence in the Heat winning a game on the road, stealing the home court advantage. I love starting on the road. Would I rather have home court advantage and you get Game 7 in your building? Yeah, obviously home court advantage is great. But I have no problem starting on the road. I'm very confident in the Heat getting a game on the road. How about the Heat won Game 1 in Milwaukee, they won Game 1 in New York, they won Game 1 in Boston. How about the Heat in the first 6 games combined of the playoffs so far? The first 2 road games in each round, 4-2. Split Milwaukee, split New York, 2-0 in Boston. 4-2. And having won all 3 game 1s. 4-2 the first 6 games on the road in these playoffs so far. I love the Heat's chances of getting a game on the road to start this series. I do believe tonight is a major opportunity to get a game on the road. This Nuggets team, 10 days off. They could be a little bit rusty. This Heat team, they're in a rhythm right now, coming off of an all-time great win for the franchise. First ever Game 7 win on the road. And yeah, it's a short turnaround, but they got to Denver very late Monday night. Today's Thursday. They've been there for 3 nights already. Like they've been able to recuperate, to rest, recuperate, however you want to look at it. It's not like they're playing the next day. So I think the schedule sets up very well for Miami to start this series. And then game 2 is not until Sunday. Tonight is a great opportunity for the Heat to steal this game. But I love the Heat's chances of getting one of these 2 games. I don't care which game it is. But here's the way I look at it. And I've told you guys this. Now, this only works for the team that's starting the series on the road. It's not the same as the team that has home court advantage. But when you start the series on the road, and I talked about this with the Panthers too, going back to round 1 against Boston. Panthers and Bruins. And I feel the same way Heat and Nuggets. Felt the same way all 3 of these rounds. Although not the Knicks series, because you knew they were going to beat the Knicks. But the way that I look at it with the Heat going into tonight, do you believe the Heat can win one, not one of the first 2 games on the road and steal home court advantage? No. Do you believe the Heat can win one of the first 3 games in this series? That's all I'm looking at right now. Can the Heat win one out of the first 3 games this series? And if you believe they can, then they're in this series. Because whichever game it is, 1, 2, 3, if you win one of the first 3 games, and again, this does not work for the home team. This does not work like this for the Nuggets. If you're the Heat and you can win one of the first 3 games this series, then you are at home for game 4 with a chance to tie the series at 2. And if the Heat are at home for game 4 with a chance to tie the series at 2 games apiece, you would be confident, right? And if the Heat can tie the series at 2 apiece and make it a best out of 3, it's a long series, and that means you are in it. So do you believe that the Heat can win one of the first 3 games this series? I think the answer has to be a resounding yes. And if you believe that the Heat can win one of the first 3 games and at worst go into game 4 at home with a chance to tie the series at 2 apiece, then the Heat are in this series and they got a chance. Now, it doesn't work for Denver. You can't say for the team that's at home for games 1 and 2, can you win one of the first 3 games? Because if you're Denver and you have to win on the road to avoid going down 3-1, that's not a good scenario. But if the Heat are at home down 2-1 with an opportunity to tie the series, that's different. You're in the series. And look, I certainly believe the Heat can win one out of the first 3. I strongly believe they can win more than one out of the first 3. But if you believe they can win one of the first 3 games, then they're in the series. And I think the Heat are going to win the series. I think they're going to win the series. As I try and hold back a smile, you know. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Now, let's talk a little bit. Actually, if I go back to Game 7 in Boston really quick before we go back to the finals, I was just thinking about it yesterday, how incredible it is that after LeBron's performance, Game 6 in your house for life, after LeBron's performance in Game 6 in Boston in 2012, like that was the all-time game, right? The all-time performance, right? That we would have 2 more games in that spot that totally rival that night. First of all, Jimmy's performance, Game 6, 2022, in their building for life, was better than LeBron's. It was better statistically, and that game was a lot closer. You needed all of Jimmy's points. The Heat, LeBron's Game 6 in 2012, the Heat were up double figures the entire game. Not to take away from LeBron's performance. It's giving more credence to Jimmy's. But that Game 6 in 2012 in Boston, we would have 2 more games that totally rival that Game 6 in 2012. That's wild. Game 6, 2022 to force Game 7. Now, of course, we lost. And Game 7 in 2023. We have 2 more games that totally rival that game. That's wild. Anyway, I wanted to make sure I pointed that out real quick. I also want to point out real quick, you guys know this, one of our OG sponsors on ZASLOW Show 2.0, my man Juan, huge Heat fan. I love how all the sponsors are huge South Florida sports fans. My man Juan, Johnny Cuba. You know Johnny Cuba is the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. It's the only beer we keep in the ZASLOW mansion. You know I'll be cracking open a 6-package. I'm not gonna drink all 6. Yeah, come on, let's not get crazy here. I'm in the comfort of my own home in the ZASLOW mansion family room enjoying the game, but I'm gonna crack open a Johnny and enjoy tonight's game. If you don't know about Johnny Cuba yet, the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0, we're talking European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. That's what we're talking about with Johnny Cuba. Go pick up a 6-pack right now. Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Take a picture of your Johnny Cuba 6-pack. Maybe you want to pour it into that tall glass. Make sure it's a good pour, not all that extra foam. You send a picture. I love posting it on my Instagram. And I'm an influencer, so you're going to be famous then if you send me the picture of yourself pouring a Johnny Cuba. Don't forget, always drink responsibly. And remember Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. So, we talked about this with Levitard yesterday. Levitard was on the show yesterday. My most viewed video, by the way, ever on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ZASLOW Show. My preference is you listen to the podcast. That's where, I guess the money is for me, But I post the video so you can also watch there. Especially, I totally get you guys wanting to watch the interviews on the YouTube channel because you like to see, face-to-face the interview. That makes all the sense in the world. But subscribing and listening to the podcast, that's really where it's at for me. The podcast is super hot over the last month. And I told you 2 days ago's show, Memorial Day, the day after the Heat won Game 7. I'm sorry. Memorial Day was Game 7. The day after Memorial Day, Tuesday, my most listened to show ever. Thank you so much. That's awesome. And yesterday's spot with Dan Levitard, youtube.com/@ZASLOW Show, most watched episode or segment on the ZASLOW Show YouTube channel. So thanks again. Obviously, that's because of Levitard. I got that Levitard rub yesterday. I super appreciate that. But thanks to all you guys. You guys are the ones doing it. And we talked yesterday about the championship. Would this championship mean the most to Heat fans? And it would definitely. So go back and listen to that. But this championship, the only one, if they win this championship, the only one that would rival it would be the first one because you've never experienced it. You're never going to forget how you felt after winning that championship in 2006. But this one would be bigger than 2012 and 2013. It absolutely would be bigger. And not just because they're the 8th seed and it's so unexpected and we've never had a Cinderella underdog run like this. But if you could understand what I'm saying, those championships in 2012 and 2013, if you understand what I'm saying here, those meant more to LeBron than they meant to the Heat. Understand what I'm saying here. It means everything to the Heat. But the Heat had won before. So who were those championships bigger for? LeBron or for the Heat as an organization? They were bigger for LeBron. 2006, was the biggest for the Heat because it was the first. But 2012 and 2013, the Heat had won before. LeBron hadn't. Those titles, if you're going to have a measuring stick, they measure higher for LeBron. Like in 2006 when the Heat won the championship, those titles meant more, that title meant more for the Heat than it did for Shaq. Shaq had already won 3. It meant everything for Shaq, but it meant more for the Heat as an organization, if you understand what I'm saying. And so this time around, this championship, if they were to win it, would only, and it might surpass it, but it would only be rivaled by the first time. This would be bigger than 2012 and 2013. It's all so exciting. So exciting.